Hey, Fidelity, how can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Skip the waiting room. TireRack.com now offers convenient mobile tire installation in select areas. Simply shop TireRack.com for your next set of tires, and at checkout, choose Tire Rack Mobile Tire Installation. An expertly trained technician will arrive with your tires and install them on site, at home, at the office, wherever you are. You'll spend less time waiting and more time doing the things you enjoy. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.
Last year, Americans ate 32 billion chicken wings. Who knows just how many helpless sides of celery were heartlessly thrown away? But this year, celery neglect can stop with you and irresistible Jif peanut butter. Because you can make a snack to make a difference. You can buy a jar of Jif to save the celery. So please, don't let celery be decoration for wings. Tap the banner to save the celery.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best group of 5 conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league is about. Welcome in, guys. Another FunBelt Podcast evening. Joined with the fabulous Dusty Thibodeau and Jeremy Harper of their sites, respectively. I'll let them. Y'all should know by now, right? This is not the first show, but good to see you guys. Good to hear you. And yes, I am back. I did not get fired. That was a Twitter rumor. The Mad FunBelt Podcast Twitter verse. The excommunication did not happen. It was unsuccessful. I'm back.
There were rumors across college football. Had been kidnapped? Had he joined the Merchant Marines? Was there some sort of hit put out onto him? We're so happy to see you back because we're really worried about you, Ben.
I'm the one with the hit. I mean, the Lafayette people, I mean, I'm sure my address is out there already.
You're a lot more careful, new location every week. But Ben, he just kind of lives his life, on the edge, making Georgia Southern fans angrier and angrier. One day, maybe we'll find him at the bottom of that beautiful Eagle Creek. So
in splashing the water, disrespecting their baptism. Here's what will make them even more excited. We bring on their actual real rival. I say that, and someone who covers Appalachian State today, because it's time for the Mountaineers to get their just dues on the FunBelt Podcast. And with that is Ethan Joyce of the Winston-Salem Journal. Ethan, thanks for joining the madness and the fun. We have plenty of questions for you this evening. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I wish I would have known when you reached out last week to be like, were you going to be on this one too? Because I don't, but no, I'm good. I'm glad I can do this for you guys.
Ethan, you got to ask the first question there. It's an exciting time right now where the Sun Belt has 2 teams ranked in the top 25. The Mountaineers just outside. You're a top 25 voter. What did you do to your Mountaineers?
Yeah, we didn't see a vote.
Well, I think one of the things you really have to consider, you have a season that was good by most standards, but it wasn't necessarily a good season with the standard that I think they've been used to. So I think the question mark there for me is really what the quarterback situation is going to look like. Chase Bryce obviously has a lot of talent, but I think you're looking at an App State team that has the biggest range of possibilities at the quarterback position than they've ever had before. It's been so sturdy from Taylor Lamb to Zach Thomas. And then you run into a scenario where you kind of see the effects of a few coaching transitions and the need to bring in a grad transfer quarterback because you exposed a lot of guys to a few offenses really quickly. That's the big thing for me. And I think any of those guys on that team would tell you that they weren't happy with last year at all. You don't beat any AP top 25 teams last year. You were in there close with a couple, but you don't beat them. So I think I've got to see a few things before that's something that I'm comfortable doing. And I thought I put Coastal and Louisiana up relatively high to where they were, slotted overall. But it is a cool time for the Sun Belt for sure.
Well, Coastal and Louisiana are two of the teams that ended up beating Appalachian State. But the game that I saw last year that I thought really set the tone for the Mountaineers, it was a game that really surprised me in the way that the Mountaineers handled it, was that game against Marshall. I was just kind of shocked about how poorly Appalachian played that game. And I actually asked Sean Clark, if there was any game plan for facing this revenge game against Marshall this year. What do you think happened against Marshall, and do you think it's going to happen again when Marshall visits Boone this year?
So what I think happened is you saw the first example of how badly that offense was going to miss Corey Sutton. That was the game where you realize that the deep threat wasn't necessarily there for App as much as they were used to. That's been Corey's MO from the moment he started playing. Penn State, he had a couple of really big catches in 2018, and he's been a game breaker like that every time he's been on the field. So I think that really kind of exposed their lack of ability to go vertical. And Marshall really just kind of set in and said, we know you're going to try to run the ball. We're going to stack it up, and we're going to see if you can take a shot and beat us. And it just didn't go their way. Now you had a couple of fluky things in there, mainly that the touchdown that became a fumble because it was punched out there at the goal line. But that's what that team really struggled with. And so that's why I think the Marshall game's a little different this year too, is because you have a Corey Sutton that lost the end of his 2019 season, used 2020 to recover and get healthy, and he's going to come back hungry. I think that's going to be a real big difference for this team.
Yeah, Corey Sutton, he's been on the team since the 80s, right?
There's a lot of guys that check that box. They've been around
How is
a while
he still
now.
alive? It seems like we've been playing Corey Sutton for 100 years now. He must be a 100-year-old man.
I never would have thought that I would have gotten this deep into this beat and still be covering some of the guys that I'm covering. Sometimes I look around and I'm like, is Taylor Lamb still here? But yeah, and that's what's so interesting too, is you have a team that is going to look, for the most part, so similar to what it looked like last year. And I think you're bringing in an offensive coordinator in Frank Ponce that's a little more familiar with the way that they used to play offense at App. And I think it's probably going to pay off. It's just kind of about getting him adjusted and settled.
Well, it wasn't just Chase Bryce. There's guys, that I look up and down these transfer lists, and, it's something that, the coaching staff certainly took advantage of, grabbing guys specifically on the defensive side of the ball. That was what kind of jumped out and popped to me. They looked like some help in the defensive secondary that I saw. I know the kid from Stanford came in as well. They got older, and it looked like smarter over there, I guess, if you will. But they, skill positions are almost never an issue for App. But to see so many guys specifically rush from the transfer portal to App, has that been a philosophy change? Is it Coach Sean Clark just taking a look and saying, all right, here's what's available? What has kind of been the mentality there building that roster?
Yeah, I actually asked him about that because there was a run there where they pick up Chase, they pick up Stu Head from Stanford, like you mentioned, they pick up Jameer Smith from Notre Dame, the running back, that kind of went everywhere. And so I think that when I asked him, I was like, is this something you want to do every year? And he said, and ideally, no. I think when it comes down to it, this is a program where I want guys to be in it for a long time. So I think they kind of understand the way we want to do things and what it means. And, the stuff that you say when you're in a football program for 4 or 5 years. But I was kind of surprised by it too. I think there were just a couple of question marks, coming out of spring. I'm trying to remember because that seems like 3 years ago now, but when they were coming out of spring, there was some safety depth concern, and that's where Stu kind of came in and helped out. They also added Madison Cone from Wisconsin. That's another guy that I omitted. But I'll tell you, Stu is a really interesting piece because I don't know if you've seen the measurements of that guy, but he's a massive safety, like huge guy. And I'm kind of intrigued to see how they're going to move him around in that defense, but also I think he's going to be a real significant special teams guy for them too. And I mean, as a guy that's, I think 6'4", hard charging like that, that'd be a pretty spooky situation when you're trying to return a ball.
When I think of Appalachian State, I think of a perfectly baked cake. Like it's fully cooked from the fringe to the center of the cake.
I hope you're going somewhere with this, Jeremy.
I am. I want to know, is there a gooey part of the cake in 2021? Is there a weakness that teams can exploit for Appalachian State this year?
I don't know if there's a gooey part. I think the only part you look at and say like, oh, is that done? I'm not sure. Should I give it like another minute? Nah, it's probably fine. I think it's probably Chase Bryce because it's a scenario where he showed talent at Clemson. He was put on a not very good Duke team in probably the hardest year that any college football player has ever had to deal with, not to mention a guy that transferred into a program and tried to adjust. And I think as great as Dave Cutcliffe is with quarterbacks, I think there's also something to be said for the layers that he expects from his quarterback that you just don't develop that quickly, especially when we're all sequestered from each other.
Is Bryce the guy though, or is Jacob Huseman, or I might mispronounce the name, does he have a shot at being the number one too?
No, I think Chase is the guy. That's kind of been they've said every time it's come up, whether it was in spring, whether it was Sunbelt Media Day, whether it was to start a fall camp, is that Chase Bryce is the guy leading, and if somebody usurps him, then they're going to take it over. But Chase is the guy they're looking at. Jacob was a guy that was really needed, to be honest, because they just needed to make sure that room had some depth in case there was an injury to Chase. Jacob's been a really good program guy, and he's also started in a few spots, or came in a few spots to kind of help keep things steady. Before Coastal was this giant that came out of nowhere, Jacob Huseman won a game at Coastal in 2018, if I'm remembering correctly, or maybe 2019. I might be mixing that up, but anyways, he's a guy that's going to be
here. You can just say whatever you want.
But he's a guy that they needed because they have some young quarterbacks in the room, and some of those have just been added, and some of those just aren't ready. And so I think they just wanted to make sure they had a sturdy hand in there, just in case worst case scenario happened.
Coming out of the gates this year, you have a great matchup there against East Carolina. Is that the game that you really kind of have circled in those non-conference, that's the one you have to win, or do you feel it's even week 2 where you travel to Miami?
I think
I'll even give you the third option, or is it the revenge game where you're going to Marshall to get that? No offense to Elon. I'm sure they're great. But
Elon. Yeah, why are you busting on Elon? Yeah.
Phoenix, baby.
They're the Phoenix. They will not rise in that game. That's my bold prediction already.
That's old SoCon blood, man. You never know. But I think if you're looking at those games, East Carolina, App State would. I think if you look at that game, that should be a pretty big showing for App. I'm not really exactly sure where ECU stands. I know they've obviously been down a few years. And so I think if you were going to come out and make a statement, that'd be a game to do it. I think the Miami game, those are the house money games. Scott Satterfield always used to say that. I think Jerry Moore said it before him, and I'm sure other coaches in a school that's considered small have said that too. But, if you go down and play well against Miami and have a good showing, I think that's a feather in your cap when you're potentially talking about a college football playoff committee, maybe mentioning a G5 team for a second and then, looking the other way. Marshall, probably realistically in this non-conference, that's the one that you really, I think, if you're App State, you look at that one, and that's the one that says a lot for you, especially if you can do it in a way where you produce a lot more than you did the last time, because that last time was on national TV and it was not a pretty sight.
You get the Panthers there to kick off Sunbelt play, and then you get the off week, and then really back-to-back tough games where you're going to Lafayette to face the Cajuns and then playing host to Coastal Carolina. Which one of those is kind of big, or you think they're really one and the same that you got to win them both?
I think Louisiana and App State have become just really, really good games. So I think you expect App State and Louisiana to be tight games now. I think if you're talking, if someone inside App State was talking candidly, that Coastal game is probably one that they look at and think like, this is, honestly, like that's going to determine the East Division more than likely.
Something I've noticed, Ethan, and tell me if I'm wrong, which I don't think I am. I know Louisiana hates Coastal because of the brouhaha with not playing whatever the conference game is, whatever Louisiana. But it sounds to me like if there's one team that Appalachian State really hates right now, it's Coastal Carolina. Am I misreading that? There seems to be a lot of tension between the two.
I don't know if I can give a great answer, because there are clearly some layers between those two fan bases that I just don't have a good concept for. But I'll tell you that as somebody that's watched App State kind of progress here, you've got a 2018 and a 2019 season where App State becomes ranked. If they handle their business, they're more than likely in that very serious conversation for the New Year's Six Group of Five spot. And in 18 and 19, they lose to Georgia Southern, and it ruins that buildup. And then in 2020, you have a fluky season. App doesn't look as strong, and out of nowhere, Coastal just hits everybody in the mouth and not only takes care of their business, but they add a BYU game and beat them pretty handily too. I think part of that, and it's a pretty logical thing where it's like App State's been consistent for a good while now, and then this rocket just shoots right by them. I think part of it's that, at least from my perspective. So I do think that's going to play into the rivalry that you see between those two schools, and specifically in that game.
But that is true. It does seem to me that Coastal Carolina is a team, and Ben had some pretty good opinions about that as well, about Coastal Carolina suddenly becoming this really strong football team coming out of nowhere and really stealing a lot of thunder and lightning from some OGs of the conference. Coastal Carolina used to be that program that you can sort of put a check mark to and say, well, that's going to be a win. Suddenly they're the darlings of the Sun Belt, which is a space formerly occupied by Appalachian State, which is actually a space formerly occupied by Troy, which is a space formerly occupied by Arkansas State. So now there's probably a lot of room for jealousy and anger. Is Appalachian State under the radar this year?
I think you can make that argument, honestly, because it does seem like there's more excitement when you're looking at a Coastal, when you're looking at a Louisiana. Obviously, that's another thing too, is you're talking about two teams that start ranked in the preseason poll. App hasn't done that, so that's kind of a weird aspect of that too. So I do think there is a component of them being underrated. I do think that probably plays into why some of these guys, or a lot of these super seniors, have come back. So I'm kind of excited to see how that plays out, because obviously I think as a senior year, those guys wouldn't have been happy for last year to be their last year.
Ethan, take us on to the campus there in Boone, North Carolina. What's kind of the game day traditions? What's it like when it's the fall?
There's been a lot of change on campus here lately, where one of the just killer tailgate spots for App State was the stadium lot right beside the stadium, and that would always just be full of people. And there's been a lot of building around App State lately that's kind of turned that into a nice quad. And I'm not really privy to whether that's going to become a tailgating space, but it's not going to be it's not going to be what it was. I think they've moved some of those spaces to the parking deck. They've moved some to other spots, and I think it's still going to be a pretty rowdy and cool atmosphere. Fall in Boone, man, is just the best because it's always, you get a nice sunny 60-degree day. The trees are changing colors. I honestly try to at least every game to sit in the press box and look out and just take a moment to have a little moment of zen, I guess, because it really is one of the best views that you could have in a college football stadium when you're sitting in a press box. And I try to not let myself forget that because I've gone to a bunch of other places, not really that great a view, and I get spoiled by this view every time I'm at an App State game. So that's always a little fun tradition that as part of my, I'm getting my notes together. I'm getting my Word doc pulled up and started. And I try to take my few seconds and really enjoy the scenery because if you get just wrapped up in work, you miss stuff like that.
What about game day traditions? What's the must do when you're on campus there? I'm trying to give you a good answer. My game day traditions are just getting there early before everybody else does and get in the press box. I can't really think of anything specific. I would just say if you got here early ahead of a game to just walk around and take in Boone and all its glory and mystique because it's a great little town. I know what you mean. I mean, I traveled a lot with ULM in the past and, I've been to Texas, been to Arizona State. It's great to say, I've been to all these great stadiums, but you don't really get to go to the campus. You're pretty much getting to the stadium to get there, to get ready for pregame. And then within an hour, you're gone after the game. So it's great to see them when they're empty. It definitely plays with your mind when you're standing in DRK there at Texas and, 110,000 and you look around and there's nothing. There's people, a handful of people putting out seat cushions and that's really all there is. But it's a different perspective of the game. And it's just always interesting to hear how everyone else takes in these games and also what goes on campus. Because a lot of times when we're covering games, we don't get to see what's going on. We don't get to go play in the ditch like Ben does when he's down in Statesboro.
Yeah, I have not made that beautiful Eagle. I haven't set foot in beautiful Eagle Creek. I don't think Ethan has either. But I can't speak for you there. But we laugh often with that baptism. I don't think App has anything like that. I don't think any other program that I know of has anything like that. But Ethan, I want to get your take on the East as a whole. Bill Connolly came out from ESPN and said, "Hey, it's the hardest division in Group of 5 football." And certainly, I don't have an argument with that, top to bottom. I mean, the worst team projected is Georgia Southern, and they still could go to a bowl game. Basically in the East. Just want to see your takeaway from seeing how the East kind of has built. And you mentioned it with Coastal. I mean, they've kind of obviously rocketed to the top now. But what's your takeaways so far?
Yeah, I think that's what's been kind of cool from my perspective because, like you guys have probably seen in your time around the Sun Belt, it's been top heavy at times. And especially in that, I'm trying to think that 2018 season where you had App State, Georgia Southern, and Troy, they were just kind of banging against each other and everybody else really wasn't keeping up. And now you see a conference that very much has a lot more depth. I'm really intrigued by, obviously super bold take here. I'm intrigued by Coastal, not to say I don't have faith in them to do it again. Cause I think they have it's a really interesting offense. I think it's kind of built to be successful there. What I think is going to be hard is that lightning in a bottle isn't something that's necessarily replicated, easily. And they could play as good as they want, but you're not going to have a season like that again where you win these games, you get more exposure because some teams aren't playing. You have the flexibility to add a game that gets you into the national conversation. That's going to be hard to do, And so I kind of want to see how they deal with that. How do they deal with the fact that there is going to be a lot of pressure? And the way to replicate it's going to be so minuscule. I want to see how they handle the pressure of being big dog for the last year.
Do you see anybody from the East sort of seep or bubbling to the top that we don't expect, that's not expected, aside from the big two, or I guess the big two of Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State?
I don't. And that's just because I think since I've been there, it's only been App State really at the top, since I've been around this beat. And so I'm genuinely shocked. I'll be shocked if, a Georgia Southern in second place, not that it couldn't happen in the East Division but I think App and Coastal, Coastal obviously has all the pressure. App has this tradition of showing up in the top of those standings. And so to see anything else would surprise the hell out of me for sure.
So you're a citizen of the East. Do you have any observations about the West?
I got to be honest. I'm probably not as good about paying attention to the West as I should be, just because I feel like one, it's always kind of been a little bit of a mystery to me. Texas State's a perfect example of a team that's always been a mystery to me, and especially the way that the way that they've kind of handled their recruiting and stuff this year, as far as the team that they're putting together and so the experience they're bringing in. I think that's always been the thing that was difficult, was that I didn't need to pay as much attention to the West when I started, and now I need to more. I definitely probably pay more attention to Louisiana than I do anybody else, at least here lately, because that's been kind of the thorn. That's been not necessarily a thorn in App's side, but it's been the one that they've gone back and forth with a lot. I feel like I showed up right as Arkansas State was cooling down a little bit, so I've said this a lot this summer, but I think the Sun Belt that you have right now is a really cool situation for the league, because it's never been like this. And I think the conference could stand to do a little better with tooting that horn and trying to talk about how good this league can be. It's been a really cool evolution to see from my vantage point since I started this job in 2017.
That's why we're here, is to toot the Sunbelt horn and to, flare up the sun and everything else that we could say.
We are in full toot. Now, it might be the beer, but there is some tooting going on. All right. So I want to ask you a question about a guy that also seems to be around forever, even though he hasn't. Cam Peebles. Cam Peebles. Is he really going to be the breakout star of the Sun Belt this year, or does he just seem to have a lot of hype surrounding him?
Well, I think Cam is one of those people that's just like freakish looking for his position, because he's like 6'3" and 215 pounds, and you don't see that a lot at a running back, especially when you consider an App State program that they kind of made their bread and butter on the guys that were shaped like Marcus Cox and Jalen Moore, kind of shorter, stockier guys. Cam isn't short. He is pretty stocky, and his speed surprises you. And I think it's because like his legs, the range that he has when he moves his legs. The thing about Cam that's always been interesting is when he came in as a freshman, Scott Satterfield in the media day, I guess it was probably 2018, said, "We like Cam Peoples. We think he's going to be we think he could be one of the best to ever do it at App State." So he came in with some of that pressure cooked into him. And then he ran into the scenario of missing the 2019 season. So you didn't get to see it like maybe you thought you would then. And even in 2020, it's not like he had a quiet year. He definitely ended it on a big note in the Myrtle Beach Bowl. But, App has always kind of leaned on the multiple back system, which is kind of what college football is now. I think Cam's thing will be, if he stays healthy this whole season, I think he definitely could be. I really think he could be, the best running back in the Sun Belt for sure. It's just about like, what kind of opportunity does he get in a backfield that's pretty congested? And, does he stay healthy and show that he can do it. I think he can, and I've watched the guy practice for years now. I think he's incredibly talented. He's also a wonderful guy to talk to and interview. So I wouldn't hate to talk to him more, just in my job. So if he has a good year, it probably means good quotes for me all season.
That's great. Okay, so because we're not afraid to answer really ask dumb questions,
or answer
dumb questions, or even present dumb questions. What do you think about the Sun Belts? There have been names bandied about for possible Sun Belt expansion. Whether it happens or not, that's another question. But if it were, who would you like to see enter the league? And somebody reasonable, somebody that you think could actually happen. I mean, we'd all like to see like Alabama come into the league or somebody like that. But who do you think would be somebody who Appalachian State would like to see come into the league?
I think we've talked about him already. I think Marshall is a no-brainer because it's more baked in rivalry, especially for some of the teams that was added in that last swath of additions when Benson kind of oversaw that. I'm trying to think who would be others. I actually mapped this out one time. I'm trying to pull it up now because I was one summer I got into trying to make a realignment pitch, and then everybody did that, and I was like, well, now I'm going to look stupid, and I'm not going to
no,
do that
you
anymore.
won't look stupid. You just look like everybody else, which is what I think all of us in this room have done that at one point or the other.
And so, I think Marshall's the no-brainer. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to pull up my sheet here, and it's not cooperating.
Wasn't TCU, because that's who Dusty was aiming for, I believe, today.
No, Dusty's aiming for Idaho.
Yeah, no, we've already talked to a national writer from The Athletic who said that was really, really dumb. So maybe go with that guy. I don't know.
No, I'm back on Texas Tech with the infamous bell ringer and tortillas on the field.
All right. But Ethan, as you're pulling up your data, what do you think of Idaho?
Oh, Jesus!
Bring Idaho.
Bring it back.
What? No, do not.
See.
Don't encourage Dusty about Idaho anymore.
That was I got to tell you, that's one of the coolest trips I've made, though.
God!
I'm telling you, awesome trip, cool little area. The Kibbe Dome is something to experience if you can. Dusty, I'm on it. I'm on stretching the Sun Belt out again.
You've made his week, Ethan. Seriously, it's just yeah.
Just like Ben, when you were gloating when we had Chris Vanini on to say Georgia State was the sleeper in the East and in the Sun Belt, and you were just gloating ear to ear, happy as could be, going, I'm glad it's not just me. Well, guess what? I'm glad it's not just me.
That's what happens when you Venmo the host. Stop
helping. To go back to the question for me, though, I think when I was putting this together and I was thinking who would make sense for Marshall to kind of be this, kind of hit that travel partner check, when that was more of a thing. I thought James Madison would be a cool addition. If you were going to go into Virginia, you might as well try to get two. I'm thinking very regionally here, obviously, but I always thought that a conference that could have App and NC in it would be really cool. A&T is a great program right now. They actually just joined the Big South. And when I was hypothesizing, part of that probably played into our coverage area where the Winston-Salem and Greensboro newspaper sports staffs are one. And so it was this would make a lot of sense because they're right here. It's another good program, but I kind of wonder, I think everybody kind of romanticizes taking the CUSA and Sunbelt and going like that and letting them fall to two sides. And there they are.
Sure.
I don't know. It's just I think the Sunbelt now would be better off to try to poach an AAC team or two if it could, in my mind, but But that's kind of, I would say, going into Virginia, going to get Marshall, maybe getting a JMU if you could, because that would be kind of in that same mold as bringing the FCS programs up into a conference again. I think those are the ones that were like, those are solid for me when I was putting that together.
What about Liberty?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think I think they're going to be alone for a long, long time.
All right. Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing about Liberty for me. Like about 3 years ago, I was so anti-Liberty. And not anti-freedom, but anti-Liberty, the school. And then now that they're doing so well and they poured so much money, I like the money, the dollar signs have actually affected me a little bit. I'm like, maybe we should look at Liberty again. But I wonder if even Liberty is like we kind of like being independent. We can do what we want or whatever. But I can't speak for Ben and I can't speak for Dusty, although I often do. CUSA Sunbelt Mega Conference is very intriguing to me. Ben, I don't know what you think about that. Every time I mention it, you kind of get this look on your face like, oh, shit. But Mega Conference, what do you think, Ben?
I just think it's
the way to go.
It's the money, man. It's the money. It's splitting the pie even worse. And I think it gets to the point where the Conference USA has wants and the Sun Belt goes, that's cute. And we pat them on the head and say, guess what? You chose wrong. You picked the wrong schools. Now our TV deals are better. So, you can't come back. We're the cool kids club and you want back. And
that puts us in the position of power, Ben. That means we can call the shots. We can do whatever we want with these guys.
I want to see Keith kill the dictator, right? That's Jeremy's ultimate idea. He wants to get on and start bossing people around. That'd be amazing.
Actually, the more you say, when you put it that way, that does sound pretty gross. So
that'd be fun. That'd be fun to watch.
Ethan Joyce, tell us, Mega Conference, yes or no?
I see. That's one of those scenarios where a couple of years ago it made more sense, and I feel like a mega conference like that now is something that kind of pulls down the Sunbelt side of that a little bit in my mind. And I mean, I agree with Ben in the sense that like I'm shackled to the idea that these schools like the splits that they're getting pot wise, and they're not going to want to add more friends and try to be honky dory about it either. And so I think it could be cool. I think it would help travel for some of the teams, especially like your App States and your Coastals, where they're not just getting destroyed by the trips, halfway across the country. I don't see it though. I'm not.
All right. So already you betrayed me with Idaho. You and Dusty are all in Idaho. Now,
maybe don't for life.
Ben are all anti-mega conference.
You had a good run, Ethan.
No, I'm the third wheel here. I can see what's going on. I am being forced out. I am like, I don't know what I'm like, but it's
FunBelt Survivor. I love it.
You don't have to hear a door slam to know it's been closed. And I see what's going on here. You guys are shutting me out, even though I've got these great ideas about never allowing Idaho ever within 100 feet of the Sun Belt and Mega Conference, which is clearly the future of college football. But fine. Let's just go ahead and you guys leave me. I'm done talking.
I have usurped you out of this podcast like Coastal usurped App State.
Yes, I feel like the New Mexico State of this group. You just bounced me out. I'm begging to come back in. I'm offering you money. And you guys are like, just no.
But what of you, Jeremy? What of you?
I would just like to take this moment to say that you should go to the Kippy Dome, though, because it truly is a magical experience.
It's a barn.
It's a hangar. Are you saying we're back to you not being anti-liberty, that you hate hangars?
And if there's something that you would like to plug real quick or talk about where you're from or a new story that's coming up, we'd love to hear about it.
I'll say follow me on Twitter for sure by Ethan Joyce. Also to plug a story I'm working on. I've been working on a series, or not really a series, but a big project on Hispanic Latino coaches in Division I football. it's kind of been in my mind for a few years, but I really got on it these last few months. And it's going to come out right when the football season starts, and it's going to be this giant weight off my back because it's just like eating up my days. But I'd appreciate the likes and shares on that one too, because it was a really meaningful project for me. So hopefully it's a meaningful read for you guys.
We'll be looking out for that, and we'll be RTing it. How about the rest of you guys? Got anything to plug? Dusty, I know you got something to plug.
What are you trying to say?
I'm just saying that you got a lot of irons in the fire, and
I do have a lot of irons in the fire. I think the big plug right now is it's football season. Make sure you're supporting your school. Get your season tickets. Go out to the games. Do your part. If it's staying 6 feet, if it's getting shot up, whatever it takes. Just make sure we have a great football season and no more controversies to where we have to hear people screaming about a team having the Rona and not getting to beat them on the field. In theory.
So much passive aggressiveness. I love it. That is the FunBelt way right there.
Yeah. Love it.
How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I echo Dusty's sentiment as well. Getting to see some high school football on Friday night. Excited to get back out there live and in person. Certainly Georgia's and is not unlike other areas in the country that are getting hit pretty hard and having huge spikes there. So be safe, everybody, and just excited to have football season here, kick off the season, and week 0, August the 28th. We're 11 days from that, and excited. Another season's here, man. You wait all summer for it, and you don't think it's going to arrive, and it's here upon us, boys. Definitely. I'm glad to can touch it, feel it, give it a big old fat hug.
I love the altruism that I'm hearing from you too, but I'm just going to plug my website. If you guys could visit HowlRaiser.com, we've got a news story, a little observation about the AP Top 25, how it's great for the Sun Belt, but it's also a little bit of the same old. So everybody, please take a look at that. I'd really appreciate that. But I also want to echo the sentiments of Ben and Dusty and Ethan talking about the beginning of the season. It's going to be a great season. There's going to be a lot of great games coming up, especially in the first 4 weeks. I hope that Appalachian State can rise up from the embarrassment of getting beat by Marshall and just kick their asses. What date is that? Is it the 4th game of the season or the 3rd?
It's their 4th game. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a weekday game.
For the sake of the Sun Belt, for our integrity, we need Appalachian State to beat Marshall. So I'm putting it all on you, Ethan. If you don't win, we're calling you back, and we're going to want an explanation.
I'll pass along to people in the program. I'll be like, hey,
when he sees us calling again, he's going to, we'll get to have a great conversation with his voicemail.
Exactly. Do not answer this.
No, man, have me back anytime. This was fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Awesome. Thanks for jumping on, Ethan. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Take care.
Skip the waiting room. TireRack.com now offers convenient mobile tire installation in select areas. Simply shop TireRack.com for your next set of tires, and at checkout, choose Tire Rack Mobile Tire Installation. An expertly trained technician will arrive with your tires and install them on site, at home, at the office, wherever you are. You'll spend less time waiting and more time doing the things you enjoy. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.